He's a 3-line whip. He's the kind of thing they'd ban. He's a walking disaster. Joe Biden is the Demolition Man. How are you, Charles?
I'm good.
I super love this movie and that song.
And the art department, you gave him a big bonus, right? I mean, this is outstanding.
This is a good one because this was frequently you come up with ideas and I'm like, nah. And then another idea and another idea. But this one just hit the ground running. And the thing that's interesting about it, Charles, this is ignorant of me. I'm sure a lot of people know this, but I just found out last night. This movie Demolition Man about Sylvester Stallone getting cryogenically frozen and waking up in a utopian/dystopian future that remarkably matches a lot of the things that we're experiencing now. It's based on Brave New World. And I'm reminded that, I think this is correct, Aldous Huxley died the same day of the Kennedy assassination.
Is that right? And in a little known fact, I think it was his daughter.
The wife injected him with LSD.
And a different story. Huh. In my freshman year in college, because I lived in New York, and because I guess whoever does this knew who the New York people were at Yale and different places, I suddenly got invited to all of these debutante balls and stuff like that. Mm. And one of the people who invited me was a fellow Yale classmate. I forget her name, but it was Huxley. It was
Lenina?
It wasn't Lenina.
Because that's the name of Sandra Bullock in this movie.
I think it was Lisa from memory, but I may have that wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you and I, we're not going to talk too much about this Demolition Man movie, but we had a pretty extensive conversation about how, even though a lot of people might look at it and think this is a dumb Sylvester Stallone action movie, the fact that it is based on Brave New World, and there is a lot of subtle subtext there. It's a much smarter film, in my opinion, than the type of stuff that we're getting today. And it was also made in the era where things were shot on film. And again, I don't want to go into this, but there was a much different discipline in Hollywood then than there is now. And I think it continues to careen downhill.
Right. Well, I think one of the reasons I thought this was a good idea is I didn't know at the time that the year of the movie was 1993. But if we think about the period 1993 to the present, the Soviet Union fell apart in 1992.
Right.
And so 1993 was the first period where the U.S. was unquestionably the sole superpower on the planet. And those were the cards that were dealt to Bill Clinton. You can't say Bill Clinton had a long and strong career in foreign policy until he became president, January 20th, 1993. So he gets
born on third base, huh?
Yeah, I'd say he's born on home base.
Sliding into home, right.
Exactly. Head first. But anyway, but so he's given those cards. Remember, India was in the business of trying to make and sell dirt sandwiches. There was nothing going on to speak of. It was really a very backward socialist country, and it was not yet by 93 decided, we're actually going to embrace modern capitalism.
Manufacturing.
That happened around 1995, I think. Huh. And China, you go and look back at the GDP of China, they didn't have Hong Kong. They didn't have, they didn't have much at all. And they weren't in the World Trade Organization. And they were still trying to emerge or pretend to emerge from being a backward, silly, frankly, communist country. Europe hadn't unified yet. The EU hadn't come together until 1997. And I think it might have been either the beginning or the end of 1997. So Bill is like here's a fantastic deck of cards, and his solution is, why don't I fuck this thing up?
But also the internet was coming.
Right.
So
yeah. He had such great cards. The wind at his back. Yes, the American economy did prosper in that period. It did.
But it was the best climate since the end of World War II.
Really, Reagan kind of got things going by 82. And so it had been on the ascendant.
Like this.
Well, it went on a rocket ship ride upwards, because from 82 to really 1990 or thereabouts, real interest rates, that is to say, interest rates less inflation, you could go into a bank, you could buy a CD, and at the end of the term of the CD, you'd have more money, more real money adjusted for inflation at the end of the CD term. And that makes, in that kind of environment, it's pretty easy to invest. Right? You don't have to take much risk, and you know you're going to get more money after the effects of inflation back at the end of the ride. But in the environment we've been on really since January 2009 to the present, that's not possible.
Dirt sandwiches are at a premium, Charles. We should also let people know that we're going to be continuing this in the First Amendment Forum. We don't yet have those going up on charlesortel.substack.com, but I do encourage people to subscribe there, even if only for free. Charles is getting ready to release his information on there. There's going to be a lot of detailed reports for people who love the type of depth that Charles goes into. So get onto charlesortel.substack.com. But if you want to watch the full discussion in the First Amendment Forum, that's going to begin in about 25 minutes on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. And I also encourage people to go there, even if for free, to read the Twitter coup report. You can also watch the First Amendment Forum broadcast on subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth.
Right. So just back on what was going on there. So here's Bill, who he gets elected. Some say that he didn't expect to win. You know,
I don't buy that.
Well, some do say that they weren't prepared to win. They hadn't cleaned out their closets back in Arkansas, and they were under investigation. So reports go, for various reasons. There were lots of corruption investigations involving what was going on inside Arkansas when he was governor. So he arrives, and he has a very rocky first period, as we know, from multiple books.
Not to quote Sylvester Stallone again.
This is Sylvester Stallone Day. But
Rocky.
But if you, I don't know how closely you were following the early period of the Clinton presidency, but I was, and because I was really pissed at George H.W. Bush for losing.
I followed the debates because I wanted Ross Perot.
And another thing.
Yeah, now, you want to keep on slow dancing. But look at him. He's like a tiny little guy there in the debate.
Yeah.
Is this? Here we go. Here's a better picture.
Yeah.
I think these two were in on it, and they were worried about Perot.
And another thing. Yeah. But anyway, in that initial period when Bill Clinton was president, multiple reports suggest that even Al Gore was pissed at Hillary because she was more or less behaving as Bill's the president, but as you know, he's the outside guy, and I'm going to make all the tough calls. I'll select the attorney general. I'll do this. Yeah. I've read most every book that has been, not everyone, but almost every book that's been written about them carefully, and multiple different people have talked about the fact that the early stumbling in 1993 was due to Hillary and her demands that she be very much not co-president formally, but she basically, people understood that you didn't cross Hillary Clinton
unless you want an ashtray embedded in your skull.
Right. And so it's a lot of colorful reporting, but so he's bumbling through that, and they really need to get reelected, and there are all these allegations of Chinese money.
Right.
Coming to Arkansas. And, when you think about that, you say, why would the Chinese want to cultivate Arkansas? Can you guess?
I mean, is there some oil there?
No, Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you're trying to, if you were smart, if the Chinese had cottoned to capitalism early on, what they would have said is, this Walmart guy, these guys in Arkansas, what they do is they source their we make their products for them, and they take a profit off beyond what we get for manufacturing the product. Why do we need Walmart? Why don't we just have Chinese stores, send the stuff direct to that from China, cut Walmart out? So in addition, the Chinese, people need a lot of food. They import a lot of different types of food.
But did they do that with Walmart? Is there a Chinese Walmart?
I don't know.
Alibaba, maybe the plan, they were like, you know what, forget it. We don't even need the brick and mortars, just get...
Yeah. I don't know. But the point is, the other thing that they need rice. Arkansas is a big rice exporter. They need chickens.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Larry Nichols said something about doing something with rice through the ADFA.
Right.
What did they do with rice?
Well, see, remember you obviously remember that the first in-depth thing that we did was the business model for charity fraud. Similarly, the business model for public corruption is what they follow to fairly well and have only exploded into the $1 trillion level since then, is you come up with a name of a quasi-government entity that sounds positive. So it's like the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. Yeah. Probably the only thing that's bad there is the word authority, because Bill Clinton doesn't like authority unless, even when he has it, he can't exercise it properly. But it sounds like it's a reputable institution. So then that, and what?
Well, I was just looking for something about the rice, and look at the first thing that comes up.
That's a different thing. That's in Australia.
So, there you go.
So I put in Arkansas, and you'll see.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
That's right.
Fake rice. What the hell is fake rice, Charles? Isn't rice the cheapest thing in the world? How are you making fake rice?
I don't know. But so what the Arkansas Development Finance Authority would do is they would go to Wall Street and they'd say, listen, they'd have the different Wall Street firms compete to raise money in the public markets for Arkansas to have capital to say that they were going to invest that capital in projects in Arkansas to develop the economy. And greedy people who were looking for higher yield on their money market fund wouldn't check too carefully or carefully enough into what was really going on at the Arkansas Development Finance Authority. And Wall Street would package their bonds into these, maybe 35 different state similar finance authorities. And, you have a money market fund, everybody makes a little bit of money, and nobody really wants to know what exactly is going on at the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, but it's probably a lot, the individual projects, if they're even real. There's just so much of a potential to claim that you raised the $400 million and then you put $100 million in this project over here to develop, I don't know, irrigation systems in Southwest Arkansas, or just make something up.
Affordable rental house development.
Or something. It just sounds good, to fight climate change or, right, or affordable.
Well, is this sounding similar to me to the subprime mortgage crisis?
Exactly. This is a facet of it. So what the allegations were involving Clinton and the various people around him is that this pool of capital was raided, basically. That the governor would have a lot of influence over which projects were financed by this, and then people who wanted to look too carefully into how the money was actually spent found that they had trouble with their lives. And, nobody would really quibble about what the project actually cost. So they'd say they took the $100 million to do something in southwestern Arkansas. In reality, of that $100 million, a large percent, venture capital.
Venture capital programs from a state thing?
It's ridiculous.
Oh, wait, it's empty. You get a call to inquire for that, Charles. Well, but Larry Nichols had a lot to say about this.
I know. There's been a lot written about it. So the allegations were that projects went to favor
friends
of Bill. There are many books written about this, and that just as I assert in the case of the Presidential Library, the simplest trick of all is to say that the project cost $100 million, and to get $100 million, but only send $20 million, let's say, for the project, and $80 million disappears various and sundry different ways, and that's why I believe that it is really dangerous to have the government get involved in these type of projects, because in finance, the best financiers don't work for anybody else. They don't need to work for it. They've made money, they build their capital. The next best are either hedge fund or private equity types. Then you get into the bankers, the traditional investment bankers who raise debt and equity and do mergers and acquisitions. By the time you get into the business of just making loans, you're not dealing with the top of the heap. And when you're making loans involving rural Arkansas or Africa or something like that, you're not going to have the same sharp intensity in the for-profit world, let alone in the government world. And so the potential to just steal a tremendous amount of money and waste a lot of money is enormous. And then on top of that, if you have a state like Arkansas where there's nobody's really...
The U.S. attorney thinks this is great.
Fine. Why are we here? Why else am I here?
Do you notice something subtle about this, Charles?
I'm not.
Well, I used to frequently make fun of the fact that they were playing IMAX movies there, and I said, how the hell can a non-profit thing have an IMAX theater in it? And they've taken away that advertising. I don't think it has anything to do with us, but it's interesting that it's gone.
Yeah.
Because it was playing like dinosaur movies. What does that have to do with Bill Clinton, and why is that?
Well, let's talk a little bit about this. I'm mindful of the First Amendment Forum, but let's spend a little time on this.
Sure.
The first issue here. Now you look at this, and I look at this, and what do you see?
At this building?
Yeah. What is this?
It's a presidential library.
Why do you say that?
Because it's written on the front of it.
Does that mean, however, that it's actually a presidential library? And that's where, when we get into the substance, which I'm doing in my Substack, we've covered this before. In order for this actually to be a lawfully organized and operated presidential library, it would have had to have been donated by a president, such a legal entity, to the recipient, the National Archives. But these idiots...
The whole building would have to be donated?
Well, and you get into the details. And the reason I bring this up is Trump is deeply into the details of presidential records.
Right.
And he is not so much yet into presidential libraries. But if you go and you say, all right, I have the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. I am going to spend money in my place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a freehold structure, a presidential library, and then I'm going to turn the deed over in its entirety, land, buildings, everything, to the National Archives. If they had done that, they would not be in the kind of trouble I believe they've been in ever since April 25th, 2005, right? Because if you are a presidential foundation, you have articles, you have bylaws, you have audits, you file truthfully in every state, and if you're operating internationally, every foreign country, and you made that gift on November 18th, 2004, which is when they said they made the gift, right? If all that was true, and they gave it as a freehold gift, it wouldn't be a problem. But the idiots did not do that. They structured it as a licensing agreement. They gave them like a long-term right.
This is like their charitable venture capital.
It's charitable self-immolation.
Licensing.
It's like, they gave them a right to occupy. That is to say, they tried to give the National Archives a right to occupy portions of that building and perform the functions of a presidential library for a period of, I believe, 200 years, right?
Right.
So on November 18th, 2004, transaction great. Mm-hmm. April 24th, 2005, transaction sort of great, still okay. You haven't issued your first really bad audit. But on November 18th, 2004, when they gave the grant, they were supposed to value whatever it is they gave, and they have never provided a valuation or a basis for valuation of what they actually gave. And then on the 25th of April 2005, they said, you know what? Even though everybody else in Arkansas has to have, a nonprofit corporation has to have articles of incorporation that are exactly mirror the bylaws, and they're supposed to have the same name, and you can't say in the articles that the operations are controlled by trustees, but in the bylaws by directors, and you can't, suddenly change the name of in the articles from the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation to William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, but not change the name in the bylaws. So all of this, in fact, did happen on April 25th, 2005. And I assert in the universe that I live in, which I'm not sure people in Washington, D.C. live in the same universe, and I'm positive people in Arkansas don't live in the government don't live in the same universe. This thing ceased to exist April 25th. And you have all these lawyers around, Bruce Lindsay, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, all these fancy people. It's just elementary stuff. And I'm not a lawyer, but it's elementary. When you're working on a project, the first thing that the lawyers will typically do is say, before we get too deeply into this, are we sure that this entity actually exists? Because if it doesn't, there's no point in you trying to sell it or raise money for it. So here you see evidence of something that they are misrepresenting what this thing is. And why am I so exercised about it? Because they are defrauding the National Archives, and maybe the National Archives saw this and they said, Jesus, we can't fix this. We better play along. Not only that, in the period before the gift, these people were so brazen that they wrote letters, sent them using the mail across state line to the House of Representatives and to the Senate to try to follow this statute where you have to give the House and the Senate time to evaluate the potential gift. And they lied in those letters.
There's something interesting I've discovered here, Charles.
What's that?
Well, so I realized you weren't there with me. You were on video and I was there. I've been there twice now. So this is the main entrance to the museum, library, or whatever the hell it is. And then as you walk down this path here, this building contains the National Archive thing, but it's interesting to note that this part of the Google map doesn't let you get a close-up view of it.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Well, that's the National Archives in there. And every time I've been there, it's been closed. I've only been there twice, and first the whole place was closed for COVID. Maybe it was Sunday. Right. It was Sunday the second time I was there, so it was closed. So that's normal. But it's a little interesting that they have close-up photography of everything, including that weird demon, but not the National Archives.
Right.
And Google, Eric Schmidt, controls this thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, so the reason I was getting into this is that, in theory, the reason that Donald Trump is being persecuted now in the Mar-a-Lago raid and elsewhere is over the question of whether he truthfully handed over all the presidential records to the National Archives, for ultimately for deposit wherever they're going to go, if he's going to have a presidential library there or within the National Archives. And here you have a creep. The head of the National Archives is a straight up creep. And it has been for a long time. And there's a lot of cattiness in the librarian world, a lot of negative comments about the different choices of National Archivists. But anyway, this National Archivist who tips the FBI off, I believe.
This is Patrick Madden?
I don't know the particular name of the guy, but I'm just saying the role of National Archivist, the way it's set up, the National Archivist has way too much power. That's somebody else. That's not the National Archivist. No, the current Archivist of the United States is Colleen Joy Shogun. It's to your right.
There you go.
So look at this. The Archivist of the United States, who is a political appointee of the president, okay, but is not a member of the cabinet. So under the statute, the way I read it, and I don't read it every day, so maybe it's been changed, but the last time I read it, the way this works, it falls to the Archivist of the United States, the person holding that title, to decide alone whether to accept a gift of a presidential library. So if a president can appoint, make a political appointment, that political appointee can cause a lot of trouble for a former president or even a sitting president. But in this case, all of the presidential records, all of them, are supposed to be in either the National Archives or in the presidential
library.
Right.
Have the other presidential libraries been properly donated? Nixon and Reagan.
I haven't looked at all of them, but I'm looking at the ones that haven't been operated properly. And so the first that I feel has not been operated properly for certain is the Clinton Foundation. That's a disaster. We don't even know. I mean, I say we should suspect, based on Hillary Clinton's later behavior, and an apple doesn't fall or a dumbbell doesn't fall far from a tree. We should expect that not all of Bill Clinton's presidential records are in this presidential library.
Well, didn't he have them at a car dealership or something?
Yeah, car dealership. When he was president, the way it works, and we put up this book before, Presidential Archivist. The way it works is there are a lot of records, and in Bill Clinton's case, I think he boasted about the most records ever created, probably until Trump. But this book is a great book, actually, to see how this world actually works. This is the archivist who handled the William J. Clinton Library. So what happens is, while a sitting president is still president, there's a presidential records team or something that's headed by a representative from, not a political appointee, a representative from the National Archives, and that person works with the president's staff to begin sifting through records. And you're right. What happened is, well before the library was even cited, let alone finished, they made a decision to put these records, in theory, in a car dealership, a former car dealership in Little Rock. And at the same time, and Bill's admitted this in his book, at the same time, Bill's presidential library bought a retreat in Hot Springs,
Right.
Arkansas, with foundation money. They had no authority to do that. There's never been an audit of that, from a relative. So they used the foundation donations to protect the estate of a relative.
the family.
Right, exactly. It's enormous. And so, you know, this thing is a textbook case, the Clinton Foundation, and how not to run a presidential library. The Bush people made a better attempt to comply, but in cooperating with the Clinton Foundation in numerous ways, yeah, that's another one. That's a hilarious.
But this is not the car dealership. This is checks in the junkyard.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so the Bush charities have other problems, but then the Obama one, the Obama Foundation, and I personally spoke to the general counsel of the Obama Foundation about this. So, you know, you can't say you didn't know.
Yeah.
Especially because I retained email. And I know the dates of the conversation. I follow
Obama retained counsel. You retained email. Right. So that's how that works. But Charles, we need to pause for a moment because we are about to shift over to the First Amendment Forum. There's so much stuff that we want to talk about with regard to Donald Trump's speech last night.
Sure.
And the thing is, even though they've allowed us to talk about how Joe Biden stole the election by cheating many ways that we've seen, we just don't know. YouTube is very fickle, and in the past, things that were said on videos years ago have gotten struck from this channel. So if you'd like to support Crowdsource the Truth and keep the independent reporting going, please become a sponsor now and join us in the First Amendment Forum in 5 minutes. Go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be right back in 5 minutes. Thanks for joining, everybody.